Gonna tell the story of morning glory, all about the serpentine fire. Surely as light begun, you will as one battle with the serpentine fire. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Hello everybody, good morning. I'm going to tell the story all about the serpentine fire. Let me show you where I am today. I'm headed over to my grandmother's home. Right now I'm at my mother's home, or what used to be of it, right here on Hill Street down from St. Jude. I did the 3-part presentation on my educational experience here in Montgomery that began here at the Catholic Parish, St. Jude. I'm also shocked to learn that the broken down old home where my grandmother lived is no longer there. I mentioned in my presentation about how this idea of Alzheimer's being perhaps worn out clones, and all of our parents or grandparents having gone through that and the trauma that causes. And then they put up a church in the area after taking your grandmother's property. Now I'm back in the car now, and I'm headed over to my other grandmother's home, and I hope I can get there without interrupting this program. I'm going to plug the phone back up so that I have enough charge. And it's not that far away. You know, when I was a little boy, my parents would sometimes tell stories about their childhood. And, you know, that always makes you feel good to see where your parents came from. My dad went to school down there at St. Jude Catholic Parish. My grandmother, who my sister calls her a gangster because she was a single mother and she raised 4 children, and with the exception of the older one, who was his own business owner, the others all went to college and became teachers and excelled from there. So, you know, she used to be a maid for the wealthier whites in this city, Montgomery, Alabama. And I'm going to show you when I get over there. But I remember when I was growing up and I was learning all about civil rights movement here in Montgomery, and they were talking about the bus boycott. And I remember she said to me, you know, my white lady came to pick me up. She said I couldn't, you know, I had 4 children to feed and I had to get to work. And she was always like that. I'm going to show you over here when I get over there, the Cobb Street area. Cobb Street is a little street, a short street, in a neighborhood where at that time, my grandmother, actually being the product of a rape, a sharecropper raped her mother. And back then, when you were a mixed child, a lot of times you were pushed out of the community. She was raised, from what I understand, on the other side of the tracks, and had a little bit of a different upbringing than most of the regular people who lived in Montgomery, a very racist town, as we all already know. But anyway, over here on this street where she lived, I remember her next door neighbor was her best friend, you know, and they were really good friends. They both were mixed. And then years later, when I moved back to Montgomery, I met a guy whose grandmother lived on that same street around the corner. So that entire neighborhood was made up of mixed people. which at that time was more socially acceptable, the light skin kind of a thing. You know, I recall the story. My mama would say that there was a church that she could hear the people singing in the morning, "Only the yellow will be saved." Only the yellow will be saved. So racism had horrific effects on the people. I'm turning on her street now, and I want to show you, because my father, who was the elder after his older brother left, to basically raise his sisters, to be their caretaker, in a sense, to protect them. And they would walk to school every day at St. Jude, all the way over here. Now, back in that day, it was very dangerous. Police would patrol, and they would have to, you know, go to school in fear. So they lived in a completely different time. Now I'm going to get out and just show a little bit of the street. My mother and I are headed over here. Throughout the years, I have always come over here and taken care of the lawn, even though my mother, my grandmother, died back in, I think it was 1998 or 2008, one of those years. But I miss her, and I love her. But anyway, here I am over at my grandmother's house where we're going to be working today. This is her home here. So many wonderful memories there. You know, my grandmother was the kind of a person who never let me go hungry when I would come home from college and drive all the way to Birmingham, where I had gotten a part-time job at Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Every day I would have to drive from Montgomery to Birmingham. I just didn't want to move home. Being a college graduate, I was ready to explore the world. But anyway, my grandmother lived right here on this street at Cobb Street. This is the street where the movie The Long Walk Home was filmed, starring Sissy Spacek and Whoopi Goldberg. They did a lot of reconstruction work, painting and such on this street to make it look good for the movie. But I'll never forget, one day I came home and the Long Walk Home movie was on. So I ran into the room and tell my parents that to turn on the TV and watch that movie. And I went back to my room to continue watching it. But there's a scene when all the people are gathering at a downtown location and the police are on the way to stop their demonstration. And when I turned the corner into the den, my dad was up on the front of his seat and he was shaking and he was looking at it almost as if he had been transported right back to that time. And I really, at that time, probably was in my 40s at that time, I really got to understand my dad a whole lot more than I ever had. You know, he and my mom met when they were 14 years old, to my understanding. And, you know, they've been together all these years. And any relationship, as you know, is challenging. But, you know, when I look around my old neighborhood where they still live and I see who has passed and whose parents are still together, you know, I can be happy that my parents are still together. And I appreciate all that they did for us. And I often give that thanks and credit to their grandmothers, the one whose home we just saw, and to my grandmother who lived here, both of whom died with Alzheimer's, not even being able to recognize who we are, and how that impacted me. Is really a source of post-traumatic stress. I remember my sister, you know, looking at her grandmother. My sister's 15 years younger than me. And, you know, I don't think she was at the level of understanding. I think she was so hurt by that, she probably wouldn't even appreciate me talking about it here. But I'm just, of course, impromptu, speaking off the cuff. And I want to make sure that I honor my grandmother and honor my family and your families who have gone through this type of thing. Here I am at my grandmother's. Today I wanted to speak briefly about Nyarlahotep, Bobby Hemmitt's production, Nyarlahotep. I spent this morning, as I often do in the early mornings, posting, teaching online, a lot of times translating the teachings of Bobby Hemmitt. For me, Nyarlahotep is one of my favorites, even though there are so many which qualify as favorites. And he's talking about many things, but the Holy Grail, the Philosopher's Stone. And we are the Messiahs. We are the fallen ones. We are the Ark of the Covenant. We are the carnelian, the topaz, the diamond, the gold, the stones that when the pineal gland is activated allows us to realize our true and feared spirituality. This is who we are. This is what we're all about. And I'm going to go over real quick and look in my car to get my notes, because I hate to do a presentation and then realize there's something that I left off. And I just want to make sure that I can get it all in. And thank you all for bearing with me. Yes, the one little part I did want to get in. You know, in our upbringing and in our history, being raised as religious people. For myself, Catholic, but I've visited all churches, all types of churches throughout the years, including ashrams, dealing with the learning of gurus and trying to understand Kundalini and what has happened in my body. But Bobby Hemmitt stresses the importance of realizing that we are living in an illusion, a series of events that never really happened, and that everything about the education that we have received has been to keep us from that knowledge, the knowledge of who we are. We know that there are many others who have inserted themselves into our history as if they had a place in that history, which they did not. So those characters in the Bible are made up characters that when we decode, we can clearly see the symbolisms all related to, basically, to Isis, Osiris, and Heru, the original divine trinity. And then people inserting other names like Abraham and Solomon, and how you break all those down, and they all reveal the Son, the hidden Son, divine Father and Mother principles. But we are coming into knowledge and consciousness, and we are understanding that pretty much everything out there is all about us, and nobody wants us to know that, and therefore we are under attack. We're under attack with bogus disease, bogus HIV, all manner of sexual organ and other body organs are under attack. And so we are diligent in doing all we can to protect our melanin. Again, I had a horrible night last night in pain due to this acute hidradenitis suppurativa, which I believe is a spiritual attack. I'm a little upset because I have been able to heal in the past. The Arcturian healing teams, MAP teams, medical assistance program teams, used to come and heal my lungs upon request. Many times I've written about that in the book. If you'll check out my book, There Is No HIV, I have detailed a lot of that. But I have not been able to gain their help at this time, and that really bothers me. I've been very committed to the work that we do, that I do, that you're doing, and I need to be in good physical health in order to do that. You know, I don't call myself a conscious doctor for no reason. So I'm still working on all manner of techniques in meditation to clear that area, to heal my body so that I can continue to do this work here. Checking the notes real quick again. Yes, this idea about moralism and behavior. You know, all of our physical illnesses seem to have been the result of our own ill states of consciousness. and how the shame and guilt elements of things that we might do or think can cause us to become energetically imbalanced in areas of the body which we can pinpoint relating to the chakras and heal ourselves. But it's all because of this idea of moralism. Well, in the recognition that this is an illusion, a series of events that never really happened, we can, and I see my mom pulling up, we can divorce ourselves from that in the realization of being monstrous soul, chaos beings, completely different in appearance, completely different in our primal world existence and where we're going back to, and release shame and guilt from anything that we might be thinking. Now, if your Kundalini's awakened, it will force to the surface unconscious material to be integrated into the whole of who we are. So, if you're in the Kundalini awakening process, the world is falling apart around you and you're wondering what is going on, that is what is happening with the dragonflies, constantly reminding you that we are living in an illusion. This is not who we really are, and any kind of material that surfaces can be integrated into the whole of who we are. A lot of times, and my book details some of the signs and symptoms of Kundalini awakening. They can be intense, erotic, sexual fantasies, perhaps, that may come up. And if you can just be like an observer, a person looking down on yourself, as it were, observing the events, allow them, as well as feelings, to pass into and through you. Even if it's painful, sink into and through the pain. I've taught about that a lot throughout the years. And again, I'm going to go now. We've got raking and hedging and bagging up stuff. It's a little bit too wet to cut the grass today. But I'm happy to be here honoring my grandmothers, both my grandmothers and both my parents, who have been excellent in comparison to what some people are living through. So if you do not have parents, our hearts do go out to you to stay focused, to remain in a positive, if you can, state of mind. Feel through the anger and then rebalance yourself to heal yourself. I am Dr. Damian Q. Lester, the Conscious Dr. Rainbow Warrior. Okay? Have a great day. I should be back in Atlanta probably tomorrow. Goodbye. The presentation won't let me stop it. I keep hitting stop. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to have to hit the button. Maybe it'll go off there.